Mr. Carlson, Mr. Travis is here to see you. Travis. I don't know. He claims to be the new program.
The story of Loni Anderson after WKRP in Cincinnati is not one defined solely by fame, glamour, or the laughter that once echoed through...
I really don't think about it because I don't know if it does matter. It's lovely to think that that's what people would think of me. It's very flattering to be thought of as sexy and I get up with me in the morning.
Television screens across America, but by a series of deeply personal trials that unfolded far from the spotlight, revealing a life marked by resilience, heartbreak, and quiet strength. At the height of her success, Anderson had become a cultural icon, her portrayal of the confident and charismatic Jennifer Marlowe turning her into one of the most recognizable faces of her era. Audiences admired her poise, her wit, and the effortless charm she brought to the role. But behind the scenes, the pressures of sudden fame and the complexities of personal relationships began to take their toll in ways that few could see or understand. As the final credits rolled on WKRP in Cincinnati, the world assumed that a journey would continue upward, that the applause would never fade, and that success would seamlessly carry over into every aspect of her life. But reality, as it so often does, told a very different story that in the years following the show's conclusion. Anderson faced a difficult transition that many actors experience after leaving a defining role. The industry that had once embraced her so enthusiastically became less certain, offering fewer opportunities that matched the brilliance of her earlier success. Typecasting loomed large, as audiences and producers alike struggled to separate her from the character that had made her famous. This professional uncertainty was compounded by the emotional weight of navigating a life that no longer revolved around the familiar rhythms of a hit television series. The applause had quieted, and in its place came a more introspective chapter, one that forced her to confront not only her career but her identity beyond the screen. Amid these challenges, her personal life became a focal point of public attention, particularly her highly publicized relationship with Burt Reynolds. Their romance, once celebrated as a glamorous union between two major stars, gradually unraveled under the strain of conflicting priorities, intense media scrutiny, and the pressures that come with living life in the public eye. What had once seemed like a fairy tale began to fracture, and their eventual separation turned into one of Hollywood's most talked about and painful breakups. For Anderson, the emotional toll was profound. The end of a marriage is always difficult, but when it unfolds under the relentless gaze of the media, every detail magnified and dissected, the pain becomes something far more overwhelming. The aftermath of the divorce was marked by legal battles, public disputes, and a level of scrutiny that few individuals are ever prepared to endure. Headlines painted a picture of conflict and bitterness, often overshadowing the deeper emotional reality of a woman grappling with loss, change, and the challenge of rebuilding her life. Anderson, however, refused to let these circumstances define her entirely. Even in the face of adversity, she demonstrated a quiet resilience, focusing on her role as a mother and finding strength in the responsibilities and love that came with it. Her dedication to her family became a grounding force, a reminder of what truly mattered amid the chaos of public perception and personal upheaval that as the years passed. Anderson encountered further hardships that tested her resolve in ways she could never have anticipated. Health challenges within her family brought new layers of emotional strain, requiring patience, compassion, and unwavering support. These moments, often hidden from public view, revealed a side of her life that contrasted sharply with the glamorous image that had once defined her career. They were moments of vulnerability, of quiet sacrifice, and of enduring love, illustrating the complexities of a life lived both in and out of the spotlight. Despite these trials, Anderson continued to pursue a passion for acting, taking on roles that allowed her to explore new dimensions of her craft. While the scale of her projects may have shifted, her commitment to storytelling and performance remained steadfast. She embraced opportunities in television and film that reflected her growth, her experiences, and her evolving perspective on life. In doing so, she demonstrated that success is not always measured by the size of an audience or the prominence of a role, but by the authenticity and dedication one brings to their work. Her journey also became one of advocacy and awareness, as she used her platform to speak openly about the challenges she had faced, offering support and encouragement to others navigating similar struggles. By sharing her story, she transformed personal pain into a source of connection and understanding, reminding others that even in the darkest moments, there is a possibility of healing and renewal. This willingness to be vulnerable, To acknowledge both triumphs and hardships added depth to her legacy, allowing audiences to see her not just as an actress, but as a person who had endured and grown through life's complexities. That in reflecting on her life after WKRP in Cincinnati, it becomes clear that the true narrative is not one of decline, but of transformation. The heartbreak she experienced did not diminish her. It reshaped her, offering new perspectives and deeper insights into what it means to persevere. The tragedies she faced were real and profound, but so too was a capacity to rise above them, to find meaning in adversity, and to continue moving forward with grace and determination. Today, the story of Loni Anderson stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It is a reminder that behind every public figure is a private journey filled with challenges, growth, and moments of profound emotion. Her life after WKRP in Cincinnati may not have followed the path that many expected, but it is a story rich with lessons about love, loss, and the enduring strength required to navigate both. In the end, her legacy is not defined solely by the laughter she once brought to millions, but by the courage she displayed when the camera stopped rolling, and the real story began in the years that followed. The narrative surrounding Loni Anderson became less about the dazzling image that audiences once adored, and more about the quiet endurance that defined her off-screen reality. The transition from being one of television's most celebrated stars on WKRP in Cincinnati to navigating a more uncertain and, at times, unforgiving industry revealed just how fleeting fame can be. Offers came and went, some promising, others disappointing, but none quite recaptured the cultural lightning she had once embodied. Yet beneath that professional uncertainty was a deeper, more personal struggle, a constant balancing act between maintaining her public persona and tending to the emotional wounds that had begun to surface in the wake of a very public divorce from Burt Reynolds. The legal disputes that followed their separation were not just prolonged but emotionally exhausting, stretching across years and becoming a recurring headline that refused to fade. Courtrooms replaced red carpets, and statements issued through attorneys replaced the warm interviews she had once given so effortlessly. It was a chapter filled with tension, one that often painted her in conflicting lights depending on the narrative being told. For Anderson, however, the experience was far more than a series of legal battles. It was a deeply personal ordeal that tested her resilience, her patience, and her ability to remain. Under immense pressure at the same time, motherhood remained a central pillar in her life, offering both solace and responsibility. Raising her children while navigating the chaos of public scrutiny required a level of strength that few could fully comprehend. She often spoke about the importance of shielding them from the harsher realities of fame, striving to create a sense of normalcy even as headlines threatened to disrupt that balance. In those moments, away from cameras and interviews, her role as a mother became her most meaningful identity, grounding her in a way that fame never could. Yet life presented further challenges that went beyond career struggles and public relationships. Health issues within her family introduced a new kind of heartbreak, one that could not be debated in courtrooms or explained in interviews. These were deeply private battles, fought quietly and with unwavering devotion. They demanded not only emotional strength, but also a profound capacity for compassion, as she stood by her loved ones during times of uncertainty and pain. Through it all, Anderson demonstrated a remarkable ability to endure, to adapt, and to find moments of hope even when circumstances seemed overwhelmingly difficult. Professionally, she continued to carve out a path, appearing in various television projects, guest roles, and films that allowed her to remain connected to her craft. While the scale and visibility of these roles differed from her earlier success, they reflected a woman who refused to be defined solely by her past. Instead, she embraced the opportunity to evolve, to explore new characters, and to redefine her place within an industry that had changed significantly since her breakout years. Her performances carried a depth that came from lived experience, a subtle authenticity that resonated in ways her earlier work could not. Public perception, too, began to shift over time. Where once there had been sensational headlines and speculation, there gradually emerged a more nuanced understanding of her journey. Audiences began to see not just the actress who had brought Jennifer Marlowe to life, but the woman who had faced adversity with grace and determination. Interviews revealed a reflective, thoughtful individual who spoke candidly about her experiences, offering insights into the realities of fame, the challenges of personal loss, and the importance of resilience. There were moments of reconciliation in her story as well, instances where the bitterness of the past softened into something more reflective, more human. Time, as it often does, allowed for perspective, and even the most painful chapters of her life became part of a larger narrative of growth and understanding. While the scars of past struggles never fully disappeared, they became less about pain and more about the strength it took to overcome them today as she moved forward. Anderson also found ways to give back, using her experiences to support causes and connect with others who face similar challenges. Whether through advocacy, public speaking, or simply sharing her story, she transformed her personal hardships into a source of inspiration. Her willingness to be open about her journey resonated with many, offering a sense of solidarity and hope to those navigating their own difficulties. That in reflecting on this period of her life, it becomes clear that the tragedy often associated with her post-WKRP years is only one part of a much larger, more complex story. Yes, there was heartbreak, deep, undeniable, and at times overwhelming, but there was also resilience, growth, and an enduring commitment to moving forward. Her journey serves as a reminder that life after fame is rarely as simple or as glamorous as it appears, and that the true measure of a person lies not in their successes, but in how they navigate their struggles. Through it all, Loni Anderson remained a figure of quiet strength, a woman who faced life's challenges with dignity and perseverance. Her story, far from being defined by tragedy alone, stands as a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of heartbreak, it is possible to endure, to grow, and to find meaning in the journey forward. As time continued its steady march forward, the story of Loni Anderson evolved into something far more profound than the headlines that once defined her. The years after WKRP in Cincinnati had tested her in ways few could have predicted, yet they also revealed a depth of character that only hardship can uncover. The woman who had once been celebrated for her beauty and charm now carried with her a quiet wisdom, shaped by loss, resilience, and the relentless passage of time. There was a noticeable shift, not just in how the world saw her, but in how she saw herself. Fame had once been the center of her identity, but now it was merely one chapter in a much larger, more meaningful story. She began to speak more openly about the emotional toll of those years, not with bitterness, but with a sense of clarity that comes from distance. The pain of her very public struggles, including the long-standing tensions with Burt Reynolds, no longer carried the same sharp edge. Instead, they became lessons, reminders of how fragile relationships can be under pressure, and how important it is to hold on to one's sense of self in the face of external chaos. In interviews, her tone was reflective rather than reactive, offering audiences a glimpse into the emotional growth that had taken place behind the scenes. There were still difficult moments, of course. Life did not suddenly become easy or predictable. The echoes of past hardships would resurface from time to time, in memories, in conversations, in the quiet solitude of reflection. But Anderson had learned how to navigate those moments with grace, allowing herself to feel them without being consumed by them. It was a delicate balance, one that required both strength and vulnerability, a willingness to confront the past while continuing to move forward. Her connection with her family deepened over the years, becoming an even more central part of her life. The challenges they faced together created bonds that were unbreakable, forged through shared experiences of both joy and hardship. In these relationships, she found a sense of purpose that transcended anything her career had ever offered. Being present for her loved ones, supporting them through their own struggles, and celebrating their successes became her greatest source of fulfillment. It was in these moments, far removed from the spotlight, that her true strength was most evident. Professionally, she continued to embrace opportunities that allowed her to remain creatively engaged, even if they no longer carried the same level of public attention. Each role she took on was approached with a renewed sense of purpose, informed by the life she had lived and the lessons she had learned. There was a subtle transformation in her performances, a depth and authenticity that spoke to her experiences. She was no longer simply playing characters. She was bringing a piece of her own journey into each role, enriching them with a sincerity that resonated deeply over time. The narrative surrounding her began to shift even further. Where once there had been sensationalism, there was now respect. Audiences and critics alike began to recognize the resilience it had taken for her to endure everything she had faced and still emerge with dignity intact. Her story became less about tragedy and more about perseverance, less about loss and more about the strength required to rebuild. There was also a sense of peace that gradually settled into her life, a quiet acceptance of both the highs and the lows that had shaped her journey. She no longer felt the need to chase the kind of fame she had once known. Instead, she focused on what truly mattered: meaningful connections, personal growth, and the ability to look back on her life with a sense of understanding rather than regret. It was a hard-earned peace, one that came only after years of navigating uncertainty and pain that I in many ways. Her story serves as a reflection of a universal truth, that life rarely unfolds as expected, and that even the most glamorous beginnings can lead to unexpected challenges. But it also serves as a powerful reminder that those challenges do not have to define us. They can shape us, strengthen us, and ultimately lead us to a deeper understanding of who we are. The tragedy often associated with a life after WKRP in Cincinnati is real, but it is only part of the picture. Equally important is the resilience she demonstrated, the growth she achieved, and the quiet strength she carried through it all. Her journey is not just a story of heartbreak. It is a story of survival, of transformation, and of the enduring human spirit. And as the years continue to pass, the legacy of Loni Anderson stands not only as a reminder of a beloved television icon, but as a testament to the power of resilience in the face of life's most difficult moments. It is a story that resonates far beyond the world of entertainment, touching on something deeply human, the ability to endure, to adapt, and to find meaning even in the midst of heartbreak that in the later chapters of her life. The journey of Loni Anderson takes on an even deeper emotional resonance, one that moved beyond the turbulence of past decades and into a space defined by reflection, acceptance, and quiet endurance. The years had softened the sharp edges of her earliest struggles, but they had not erased them. Instead, those experiences became part of a larger tapestry, one that told a story not just of loss and hardship, but of survival and inner strength. The legacy of WKRP in Cincinnati remained an important part of her identity, yet it no longer defined her entirely. She had grown beyond it, shaped by everything that came after. There is something profoundly human in the way she began to look back on her life, not with regret, but with understanding. The heartbreak she endured, including the very public and painful chapters involving Burt Reynolds, were no longer open wounds, but rather scars that told a story of endurance. Time had given her perspective, allowing her to see those moments not as defining failures, but as necessary experiences that shaped who she became. She spoke, when she chose to speak at all, with a calm honesty that revealed just how much she had evolved. Her life became quieter, more grounded, centered around the people and values that truly mattered. The chaos of Hollywood, once an ever-present force, faded into the background as she focused on creating a sense of peace in her everyday life. There were still reminders of her past, fans who remembered her iconic role, interviews that revisited her most famous years, but she approached them with a sense of detachment, as though they belonged to another version of herself. That version was still important, still cherished, but it was no longer the whole story. Family continued to be her anchor, providing a sense of purpose that remained constant even as everything else changed. Through the ups and downs, through the moments of uncertainty and loss, it was a role within her family that gave her the greatest sense of fulfillment. The challenges they faced together only strengthened those bonds, creating a foundation of love and support that endured through every phase of her life. In those relationships, she found a kind of success that no award or recognition could ever replicate. There is also a quiet dignity in the way she handled the fading of public attention. For many who experience the heights of fame, that transition can be one of the most difficult aspects of their journey. But for Anderson, it became an opportunity to rediscover herself outside of the spotlight. She no longer needed validation from audiences or critics. Her sense of worth had shifted inward, grounded in her experiences and the lessons she had learned along the way. Her story, when viewed in its entirety, becomes something far more